Do you believe there was a man who hijacked the plane, stole $200,000, jumped out of the plane in the middle of a storm, and he was never seen again? No arrests, no bodies, no answers. And 50 years later, the story still remains a mystery. It remains unsolved. This is the story of D.B. Cooper, a man who boarded a commercial flight and disappeared forever. It was November 24, 1971, the day before Thanksgiving. The airports were filled with people trying to get home to their families. And amongst them was a man who just looked completely ordinary. He was dressed in a business suit, wearing a black tie, and he was even carrying a briefcase. And he bought a one-way ticket from Portland to Seattle using cash. Nothing about him stood out, and if you had walked past him that day, you probably wouldn't have looked twice about the way he looks. His name on the ticket was Dan Cooper, but because a newspaper made a mistake while publishing his name, the world would come to know him as D.B. Cooper. And before the flight ended, he was going to become one of the most mysterious criminals in the world. So a few minutes after the plane took off, he ordered some drinks and he lit up his cigarette, which was allowed back then. And he didn't look nervous, he wasn't acting suspicious, he just looked like someone enjoying his flight back home. He handed a note to a flight attendant, and she didn't really look at it because she just thought it was one of those passengers who used to flirt with attendants. So she just took it and she put it into her purse. But then he had to walk up to her to tell her that, "Miss, you had better read the note because I have a bomb." Then this time around, she had to take it out of her purse and read what was written in the note. Then he opened his briefcase to show her a little bit of what looked like a bomb. Whether the bomb is real or not, nobody knows, but she was able to just see that, and she couldn't take any risk because imagine reading that kind of note when you are thousands of feet in the air. But while he was doing all this, he remained calm, he didn't shout, he didn't panic. Many of the people in the plane didn't even know what was going on. Then he made some demands. He said he wanted 4 parachutes, $200,000 in cash, and a fueled tank waiting for him when the plane landed in Seattle. So the pilots contacted air traffic control, and before long, the FBI was involved. But they had to make a decision. Do they refuse his demands and risk everybody's lives, or do they simply give him what he wants? They had to go with the second option. And while the plane stayed in the air, police rushed to gather the ransom money. They also found 4 parachutes, and meanwhile, Cooper just sat there. He even paid for his drinks. Can you imagine that? Someone who hijacks a plane and is busy still paying for his drinks. But eventually, the plane landed in Seattle. The money was brought on board, and so were the parachutes. And after checking everything, Cooper let every passenger leave safely. He even released some of the crew, and at that point, the nightmare should have been over. But Cooper wasn't finished yet. He ordered the pilots back into the air. This time, they were headed towards Mexico. Then he gave them some unusual instructions. Fly no higher than 10,000 feet. Keep the speed low. Leave the cabin unpressurized, and most importantly, leave the rear staircase unlocked. The pilots thought it was a very odd request, but they followed his instructions. Outside, the weather was very terrible. Heavy rain, strong winds, freezing temperatures. The kind of weather where most people wouldn't even want to come outside, let alone jump from an airplane. But around 8 p.m., something happened. A warning light inside the cockpit suddenly came on, and it showed that the rear staircase had been lowered. A few moments later, the pilots felt the plane suddenly lift slightly, almost as if a heavy weight had disappeared. But the captain tried to contact Cooper. There was no response. When the plane finally landed in Reno, police rushed on board expecting to arrest him. But instead, they found an empty cabin. Cooper was gone, and so was the money. And 1 parachute was also missing out of the initial 4. And what does this mean? It means he had jumped out of the plane and disappeared into the darkness. Then the FBI launched one of the biggest investigations in its history. They searched forests, rivers, mountains. They even questioned hundreds of suspects over the years, but nothing came out of it. Then 9 years later, a young boy digging across a riverbank found some $20 bills that looked really bad in the sand. The serial numbers matched Cooper's ransom money. It was the first and only piece of evidence they have ever found. But it answered nothing. Did Cooper survive the jump and hide the money? Did he die in the wilderness? Or did he simply pull up the perfect escape? Nobody knows. That's why the story remains one of the greatest mysteries in the world. So what do you think? Do you think he escaped with the money, or he just simply disappeared?